Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Token Nerd Review. I'm Anthony.
And I'm Travis.
We are on the countdown, folks, to Batman v Superman. A good 3 weeks away.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
25th, right?
25th. We have, counting that Friday, or counting today, 3 Fridays until the movie I've been waiting for. And most of us have been waiting for.
Is it another Ice Cube Friday? Since we're only
no one can see the hateful look I just gave.
The Friday after next.
Yeah. The next Friday. Anyway, but no. So we're gonna be doing a review of various Batman versus Superman or Batman and Superman movies. Mostly they'll be animated, unlike today's featured review.
Yes.
But so pay attention. Stay up on the site because we'll be posting a new review based on Batman and Superman every Friday up until the big day. But today, our first review is mostly Superman, but dabbles
in Batman.
Yes. We had the privilege of, well, it wasn't given to us. We got to watch the Jon Schnepp, and you might know him for those of you who watch Collider and who used to watch AMC, Jedi Council, Collider Heroes, the main host and co-host on those shows. But Jon Schnepp had directed had started a Kickstarter a while back where he was putting together a documentary based off of a Superman movie that was never made. And for me, I had been hearing Jon Schnepp talk about this for the last for the last year, and just with him pulling information when he talked about, supporting his Kickstarter. And I kept saying I was going to see it, never had a chance to. And Travis and I sat down one day and we're just going to watch this.
Yes.
And so that will be our first review. Will be
a documentary.
I love
documentaries. I don't know what you're talking about.
I have nothing against them. But today we're going to be reviewing The Death of Superman Lived, What Happened, directed and written by Jon Schnepp. All right, Travis, take it away.
Okay, so let's do like initial thoughts. Like, what did you think when you were going, before you watched it?
Before I watched it,
what do you think you were going to learn?
Well, I mean, really, what we got in this film was what I was expecting. I was expecting the walkthrough. Okay, so This is how we were going to start. This was the initial concept. I didn't think that this was as far along as it ended up being. I mean, they had concept art. We had even the costume of what Nicolas Cage, who was going to be the new Superman, was going to wear. It took off. I was expecting it to be more of, here's a script. We had a couple the famous Nicolas Cage photo that everyone's seen with him in his Superman suit where he's half blinking. I was assuming we had maybe that kind of costume, a fitting, but I wasn't expecting half of the crap that happened.
They look like they spent a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
Like they were a long ways down the road.
And I will be completely honest with our listeners. I cannot remember half of the effects and the prop crew, the names that were mentioned, but they put some serious work into this.
I mean, like a lot of those, like the vacuum molding and stuff for that light suit and all the like intricate wiring and all that stuff. And I mean, the different iterations of the rubber suit that they were building and everything, and like trying to fix the mobility and all those issues. They did a lot of work to get those suits going. I mean, they were down the road.
And they said like once they were really up and going and they were ready to make this movie is when they pulled the rug underneath them and told them they weren't going to make it.
Thank you, Batman and Robin.
Yeah, thanks. But we needed that movie to get to what we got. But no, this movie could have. See, we're talking now about, this would have been such a great movie, but who knows? This could have been, because I mean they were cool ideas. We were gonna have a Brainiac, Doomsday. There was a lot involved. There was no way they could have made this.
And like the people that think this movie would have been really bad, like as far as because Nicolas Cage is Superman. My opinion on that is partially that it kind of got really cool to hate on Nicolas Cage in like the late 2000s when he made like movie after movie where he was hired to play Nicolas Cage. But if you look back to the time frame of when this movie was being made, I mean, he was a guy that was, winning Oscars
Oh, he was a hot topic.
Yeah, I mean, and he was putting out a lot of really interesting movies. I mean, this was a little bit before like Matchstick Men and Adaptation and some of these, like movies that were kind of like, to me, more of his like really better acting roles than like say Con Air or even like Gone in 60 Seconds.
I love that.
I love that movie, but
that's one of my top 10.
But I mean, like
time.
he was ruling the world back then. He was like, anybody needed to act like an action star actor, you call Nicolas Cage. So like, I don't think he was a horrible choice. I think I think people like to look back and like look at it through the lens of the later Nicolas Cage and like to hate on that.
Yeah. Just a little fun fact. He is actually Nicolas Cage is actually a really huge superhero or comic book fan. He actually took the last name Cage because that's not his real name. His last name is Nick Coppola.
You know who his uncle is, right?
No.
Francis Ford Coppola, the director of The Godfather.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. He's from he's like from a famous family of actors and movie people.
Can I tell you something?
What?
I've never seen The Godfather.
Oh.
Never seen it. But so Nicolas Cage, the story that I heard is that he took the last name Cage from Luke Cage.
Yeah, and it talks about it in the documentary.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, here's kind of what I expected to get out of this movie. Like you, I didn't realize it was that far down the road. I was expecting to get the answers about things like the light suit that we ended up getting. That, guess what, guys? It wasn't really going to be that much in the movie. They were said maybe what was it, like 6 minutes or something.
Yeah, it was just him recovering.
Yeah, him recovering. But the things I got more out of the story was more interesting to me was like the Tim Burton aspect of Superman. Tim Burton kind of like taking Superman's story and turning it into a Tim Burton story where it's kind of like it's a burden.
But he was excited to take it on because it was going to be brighter.
Yeah.
A different feel. We were still going to get the Burton feel, but it was a different style. But I want to also point out that it started with Kevin Smith.
Yes.
Good old Batman on Batman.
We forgot where it started.
So yeah, Kevin or Mr. Smith, as I like to call him.
Yep.
We're not personal friends yet, but
we try.
Because Kevin, you are the fat man on Batman. I'm the half black man on Batman. It could be a thing.
It could be a thing.
I'll see you at con. But no. So Kevin had an idea. What he had written was getting a little bit. The producer was John Peters, and if you've heard any of like Kevin Smith's stand-ups, not stand-ups,
just podcasts,
and he's just had shows where he's gone out and told this story about John Peters, who's the director, who kind of came in and said, "Well, I want giant spiders and polar bear guards."
Yep.
So
I think it's also important to point out that there was a script that was created before Kevin came along. A very short one with a bad name, as he called it, which was Superman Reborn, or AKA Superman rebranded for a new generation.
Yeah.
And kind of pointed out that this isn't what we need. So he wanted to make a better version of that movie and bring Superman back and interesting for a new generation. So like Kevin was a very important portion of the story in the fact that he wanted it to be better than it was.
Yeah.
Obviously, as they kind of cruised down the road, him and Tim Burton didn't really see eye to eye, and he was not carried on throughout the story. But they did say in the movie that a significant portion of what Kevin created was actually left in as the script carried on, because he took the Death of Superman comic books and incorporated that storyline into the movie. So I think had he not probably came along, because based on what they were saying in the movie, the folks that came along later were not necessarily comic book people.
No.
I don't know that they would have incorporated as much comic information into the story.
And they wouldn't have. And that's what Kevin Smith also talks about in a lot of his other podcasts and shows, was just how directors at the time, like, we're lucky to have people who are making movies who are fans.
Yep.
Like Christopher Nolan famously is not a comic book fan.
Yep.
And you can kind of tell, like, just it wasn't there. And now we have, Jeff Johns Consulting, Ben Affleck consulting, huge comic book fans. Even Zack Snyder is a fan of comics.
It's and that's kind of like in the 90s we had all that weird stuff in Batman, like Batman credit cards and such.
And nipples.
Yes. But I will say though, like, and they did a really good job as they kind of moved on to the Tim Burton aspect of like tying kind of what he did with Batman. And he did kind of like help change the tone of Batman, there were darker stories that were being told in the comics, but his Batman kind of cemented it.
Yeah.
Like he was the one that's like, okay, this is what Batman does. This is what everything's darker, those kind of things.
Did you ever see The Death of Superman, the animated movie?
I have not seen the Death of Superman animated movie.
Okay, well, that's what I was expecting from Superman Lives, or Superman Lives was to be like this. It starts with Doomsday coming in, they fight, Superman dies, a replacement Superman comes in, and Superman comes back to life, takes his position, saves the day. And that's kind of what I was expecting from this movie, but they couldn't have done that.
Yeah.
This to me sounded like the first trilogy or a dual movie that we'd end up getting, where it's one after another.
Yeah.
Because they were talking about, they had to introduce so much.
Yep.
For goodness sake, Batman was going to be in it.
Yeah.
And when they mentioned it, I was kind of excited for the idea that after Superman dies, Batman comes on the screen all across Metropolis and tells the city.
That was a Kevin Smith edition. Remember, he's like, I want to write something in that is clearly written by a Batman fan.
Yeah.
But I think to me, as they kind of like moved into the concept art that Tim Burton was kind of doodling, that then people transformed into their versions of things. I think the most interesting thing about this world was how not Superman it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was clearly a Superman seen through the eyes of Tim Burton.
Yeah.
And to me, like, all the Superman movies, like everything is kind of, specifically up through Superman Returns.
Yeah.
It's very like nostalgic, very like Americana. It's what it is. I think it would have been so interesting to see a different Superman. And specifically with the strangeness of Tim Burton's kind of like vision. I think it would have been interesting to have a different Superman. Do I think it would have been like the most amazing movie ever made? I don't know. I don't trust things from the 90s to be like,
there was a lot of ideas,
but
it was all concepts.
So. I love different stuff, I enjoy like different takes on things, and it might not have been the best thing in the world, but I think it would have just been interesting.
It would have been interesting, and who knows what kind of impact it would have had. We wouldn't have gotten Batman Begins.
I mean, and I think it's also like people are like, I've heard people say this, and I kind of thought it as well because I was not a Superman reader. Like, why does Nicolas Cage have long hair? And at the time, Superman had long hair. So like, it makes more sense. I did like Tim Burton's defense. Like, everybody's like, oh, his hair sucks or whatever, and like all this stuff. But he's like, it was just a wig we threw on him for a test. Like, we hadn't done the hair. Like, it wasn't done up. It was just thrown on his head to see how it looked.
He's like, and that's why now I don't have people. It's only between me and a couple friends when I do my
test shoots and everything. The other thing that was interesting, and I believe Kevin Smith pointed this out when I was listening to the podcast, with the director, is that the portion when Nick Cage has on the Clark Kent gear, and you can see him kind of developing the character, and that was
really cool.
And they didn't want him to be like a put together Superman. They wanted him to be kind of like the 90s version of Superman. Like, oh, I'm kind of like hip, cool. I wear a t-shirt under my jacket, like type thing, not a like dress shirt cleaned up.
Yeah.
And like, again, another element that might have somehow changed the overall mythos of Superman. I mean, there's things, it's kind of like in that same podcast, Kevin Smith points out that, or not, I don't believe it was Kevin Smith, actually. I think it was the folks that were with the director, but they said like they should have made a graphic novel based on these scripts. Just to kind of like tell the story how it was supposed to be told.
I'm surprised it hasn't come out yet because we have, Batman 66, Wonder Woman 77.
And specifically with the success of this Kickstarter movie, like there's people that are interested in the story.
oh yeah, this story, and John Schnepp's getting ready to start a series
Yes.
of this kind of, and it's a genre that he created
Yeah.
of
Of movies, of things that didn't happen.
Yeah,
like
this level of film history.
Yeah, because and I think I think based on what he said the last time I heard him talking about, there's going to be more than just things that didn't happen. Some things did happen that he's doing right. But like, to me, it's things that got this far down the road, like as far as Superman Lives got down the road, and to see it not go through, that is, like, to me, that's super interesting, considering also the level of stardom that was tied to this. Because remember, Nicolas Cage was huge.
Yeah.
And Tim Burton was huge. Like, these are people that are, humongous at this time.
Well, that's what I'm excited about this series. What else do we not get? I mean,
Yeah.
they poured money into this.
Yeah. I mean, then this is just the stuff he got access to. And I mean, he got amazing access when
art and
when he got
sculptures.
through to Tim Burton. And again, on that podcast, like, I really suggest you listen to the Fat Man on Batman podcast where Kevin Smith interviews the folks from the movie, because there's a lot of interesting background story that obviously you don't get in the movie, like how they got in to talk to Tim Burton, because Tim Burton doesn't really do interviews.
Yeah.
I mean, so like, the fact that they got to talk to him was amazing, and that he supported the project because he opened doors for them that they would not have gotten.
Mm-hmm.
I think had they, there was probably a chance that contacting Nick Cage, the more and more this movie got along, they might have had a better shot. But I mean, it would have been awesome had they got that interview. But the footage they got was, it's like he's in the movie, even though he's not.
Yeah, and you kind of get to see into his mind as he's literally trying on this suit and talking about, oh, well, he'd be like this. He'd be, this is how Clark Kent would be. He would be, the guy you wouldn't look twice at because he just looks crazy.
Yep.
But it's like, like you said, at the time, it was the 90s. So that's how people nice. Like, our Superman now is a blogger.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people are mad about that, but that makes sense.
Yeah, because who's reading the newspaper?
Exactly.
But I think the interesting thing was, like, in the 90s, like, we could still get movies like another Nicolas Cage movie, Face Off.
Mm-hmm.
Totally, like, out there movie that, like, it's all on its own. And it was like an experiment, and they put it in the theaters.
Yeah.
And it made money. Like,
but it probably didn't cost as much as Superman Lives did.
Yes, true. But what I'm saying is, they were taking a huge risk on messing with Superman's mythos and, like, doing these things. And now, like, everything has to be, like, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they won't take risks anymore because they've been burned so many times. I mean, Tomorrowland was a great example. We're going to take a risk and make a whole new movie about something that people don't really understand, unless you understand the Disney parks. And people didn't support it because they everybody wants to support humongous blockbuster type movies.
Mm-hmm.
That's why when I watched this documentary, I was kind of sad, just because it was a chance to make something different, and it didn't happen, and it could have been the worst thing in the world.
Oh yeah.
But I would not have denied that they tried to do something different.
Let's step backwards for a second.
Yes.
Now this is hypothetical, just for the sake of conversation. What if this was, the death of Batman or Robin? What happened? Or Batman Forever?
Uh-huh.
And so we get to see, they were going to bring in, Jim Carrey as the Riddler, and we're just like, what? That would have been amazing. They were going to bring Chris O'Donnell as Robin, an older Robin, a more like a Nightwing, but he still wore the Robin outfit. And then we have, we have Iceman as Batman. Like, how great would that have been?
Yep.
And we get to sit there and we're like, oh my God, we could have had this movie.
Yeah.
And I just want to put that out there. Not saying that this wouldn't have been a good movie, but let's be real.
I mean, we didn't obviously get the details. We don't have, like, the horrible Batman credit card in the and like things like that from this film, because it wasn't quite that far.
Yeah, we're judging it based off of concept art and idea.
But I will say, and I mean, there's people in the Batman series as later movies that went on to make great movies. But I like to think that I want to give Tim Burton some credit here, that he's going to make a decent movie, because he tends to, like, there's something about his, like, the way he takes a character, and he's able to, I guess it plays to the emo kid in me, but he's able to take, like, the pain and the self-loathing that a character can develop within himself and not feel comfortable in the room, no matter, even like Superman doesn't feel comfortable based on the way that they were kind of like framing it.
Yeah.
As Superman, even though he can like save the world basically. And I guess it just kind of plays to my heart. Like the way that I kind of like I enjoy movies like that where the person kind of is
struggling to be accepted.
Yeah, struggling to be accepted. And the way Tim Burton does that, he does an awesome job of it. And I think that would have been a really interesting way to deal with Superman, because it's not the way Superman has been portrayed.
Yeah, I would love to see that the fact that Superman, as we would see as citizens, is like, look how confident and powerful he is, but then he looks back like, I'm not like anything.
Yeah, because even that concept art that they did of him in like the darker Superman, like the black suit, like once he's reborn or whatever, like it was so like I looked at it, I was like, that's so awesome. I'd like to have like a print of that. Like that's just so cool looking. But who I would like to see? Tim Burton takes on Spider-Man. Because like imagine like dealing with the teenager emotions and like putting the little like emo-ness into it.
I could see it being a little bit more like the Tim Rainey the Rainey versions, the first Spider-Man 1 and 2. With the web coming from his arm. I could see that being a Burton thing.
Yeah, I could see that.
But I mean, overall, liked it. I know this is going to be the small section or portion of the show was to talk about our overall thoughts on it. But I mean, overall, I liked it, and you liked it too, and I'm really excited to see what Schnepp will do from here.
Yeah.
And let's bring it back to the main point of having this review with Batman v Superman coming up.
Yep.
What would you like to see? So let's say that Zack Snyder got to see this movie or this documentary, and he got to take something away from it to add to our Superman or Batman or our
story
Man
line.
of Steel.
Yep.
Do you think that would you want to see the Henry Cavill Superman be tortured? Because he kind of was. He kind of is tortured, and you see like because the world has made it very clear that you are an alien, you are not one of us.
Yeah, and I think that self-confidence, self-doubt. That Superman kind of like walks the line of, and specifically in this movie, you could easily bring that aspect into it because he's not accepted.
Yeah,
and like that self-doubt within could easily be worked into this movie. I mean, I think I think they've done a pretty good job in these Superman movies of not making the typical Superman movie with the prior ones. So I think they kind of already may have learned like we don't have to do the guy in his underwear, like they can do something a little different.
Yeah,
and I think they've done a pretty good job of that because they have a valuable property that they could easily and they've tried many times to make him like mainstream, and now it's getting there. It's getting there, but it's going to take the help of the Dark Knight to help him.
Yeah.
Like I feel like once he gets involved in the story, then people are going to actually, care. I mean, the two movies prior to this, I mean, I've watched them a couple of times each, but I'm not like sitting there watching it over and over again.
Yeah.
But so like Batman, I think bringing Batman into it will help people want to learn more about Superman and care more about Superman.
Yeah. And like we said, Death of Superman Live was going to be the first Batman Superman. Like they were both in the same movie.
Yep.
Technically.
Yep.
But yeah. So
tokens. How many?
I'd easily give it. I mean, I enjoyed it.
Yep.
I want to make sure that 5 is a high rating.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So 4, I'd give it 3.5.
Yeah. I am going to go with 4. I go with 4 a lot, but the reason I'm going with 4 is because I learned a lot of information that A, I didn't know, and B, I think it was put together really well. I think it was a good documentary. I think the interviews were very useful. I think they scored some very good interviews. They got some really good footage.
They were all beneficial. Then it all made sense. It wasn't just like I got someone, so I'm going to use them.
Yeah, it wasn't like, oh, I got the guy that brought coffee. Like these were people that were actually instrumentally involved in the production.
Well, John Schnepp even mentioned how they still have tons of stuff they didn't even put in the movie.
Yeah.
Footage, or not footage, but test footage and other concept art that just didn't make it.
They had more interviews as well that didn't make it. Because obviously when you're building a movie like this, you could easily have like a 5-hour thing if you got enough footage, but nobody wants to sit there for 5 hours. So they got to whittle it down. But I believe on their website, I did see that there is, bonus footage and deleted scenes and things like that you can get. If you did want to go out and pick this up on the Death of Superman Lives website, and we're going to pull that up for you. You can actually buy the digital version. You can actually rent the movie. You can also pick up a Blu-ray version of it. And there's a couple of different iterations that include deleted scenes and other awesome bonuses. But just make sure to head over to the website,
which is www.t as in the, D as in death, O as in of, S as in Superman, L as in lives, W as in what? No, there was a.
We'll put a link in the show notes.
We'll just put a link in the show notes, but it's www.tdoslwh.com.
Yeah, and just head over there and make sure to check out everything because there's a lot of great options to check out. Also, if you happen to be a Hulu Showtime subscriber, it is available there. And if you do have Showtime, it's on Showtime right now. If you catch the the times that it's on. Or if you're a Showtime Anytime user, you can also get it there as well.
Yeah. Just to point out, if you get on the website, there is an option you can rent it for $6.99.
Yes.
So that's definitely, and you can buy it for $14.99. You can get a special mid pack that comes with featurette. There's just a lot more information. That's for $20, and then if you go the full $30, it comes with all sorts of junk. You even get not a Fat Man on Batman, but John Schnepp and Kevin Smith talk. So it's not a Fat Man on Batman, but there's a little bit of back and forth between the two sweaties.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff out there, and it's not worth us going over all of it. So just make sure to head over to the website and check it out. And like we said, he's got a lot more projects coming down the way. So it's definitely going to be a filmmaker to watch.
Yeah.
Filmmaker/entertainer to watch.
Definitely.
So I guess this kind of wraps up our review. So in the countdown, the Batman versus Superman is on.
Begins.
So no, that's another movie. So if you if you like what we're talking about, just make sure to go ahead and follow us on social media. We have an Instagram account, token_nerd. Also, our Twitter account is token_nerd. We also have a Facebook page, Token Nerd. You can like and subscribe our videos here on YouTube. It's a great way to keep up with our latest information. And we also have some big news.
Big news.
We will soon be on iTunes.
Yep, it's on the way, folks.
So podcasting for real.
No, because we're two guys hiding in a small room,
and we're on the podcast site. So we're a real podcast when that happens. So make sure to keep on iTunes, keep watching iTunes for that. We will also let you know once it's officially on there. But also, we're still waiting on that first fan mail.
Oh, we are.
Yep. So if you want to send us a like, a hate, whatever you want to take.
Let's leave out the hate.
Yeah, you can send us a hate too. We'll read that as well. So make sure to send us something over to tokennerdpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll read you on the air. So, as always,
I'm Anthony.
And I'm Travis.
Stay spicy, my friends.